questions. Got them here. Perfect. Okay. So, the first question is, who are you, and what area do you represent?
I'll go first. Hi, I'm Kayla Schneider. I am a senior data analyst here at APU. I work in university advancement, and what that is fundraising. So what I do is I provide data to the university, all departments. So anybody who wants to contact alumni or donors or current parents, sometime in the future, students, we will, they come to me and we'll get a base for what they're looking for, and we'll send it out. So it's part of the job that me and my team work with. And then also I provide visualizations, reporting, inside and outside of the university, and just like metrics analysis, so where we should be going, projections, things like that.
Great, thank you. Jason?
My name is Jason Granillo. I'm alumni 97, PE major, who ended up in data analytics and marketing. I work at a law firm in Orange County. I'm in charge of their marketing budgets, how we engage with adoptive couples and birth mothers. Those are our two demographics, and what that looks like as far as the engagement points, where they're falling off, what we can do better, where we need to spend money to get the most traffic.
So it's a law firm helping people with adoption process?
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, we have clients who adopt children.
Thank you. All right, so, and I'll introduce myself again. Dr. Curtis Lehman, I'm here, I'm a full-time faculty at APU in the psych department. So many of you I don't think I've had in classes yet, but I am going to be speaking, not necessarily really from my academic job here, but I've had the opportunity to do some consulting work with so here and there with some companies and some organizations. I worked with the Saddleback Church. They had a program called Daniel Plan, where they had Rick Warren, who you may be familiar with. He paired up with some doctors, Dr. Oz, Dr. Daniel Amen, and Dr. Hyman, and they developed it's not a diet plan, very clear about that, but a sort of a health, physical health support program. And they needed some data analysis of the initial results, and wanted to understand, is this program working? And so I was able to get involved there. I worked for also did a project working with a company that was trying to match up people's personalities with their with spiritual disciplines. It's kind of an interesting idea. So it was a website that was designed to say, okay, let's do a personality assessment and see how that might lead to what spiritual disciplines would be most enjoyable, most helpful for you. So I did that, and worked for a addiction treatment facility where I did analysis to understand discharge patterns and trying to understand, why are people leaving treatment? What are the factors? And so that's kind of where I'll be speaking from a bit. And it's great to have some alumni who are interested in supporting you. They're here for you. They're here because they want to speak into your calling, vocation, and your future career as well, and to be able to kind of encourage you in that process. So very thankful to have such great volunteers to be here. So second question, what kinds of careers do people in your field often pursue? It's kind of I don't know where you want to go with that.
I think there are, so many options. Like Jason said, he is a PE major. I was a music major. So I think that it doesn't quite matter what you get your degree in actually. It's definitely more about what you're passionate about. And so I love to help make people work more efficiently. That is something that really brings me joy, to see somebody doing something in such a difficult manner, and to be able to say, wait, I can like write a program for you to do that. Like you don't have to go through and sort this 12 different ways and like get that data. Oh, I can just write some code for you in this Access and like that'll do it for you. And it saves them hours of time. So there's like, my job has multiple avenues of that. So I can either like be a developer, or I love to do like business, like work, be the person in between the data and like the person, like the layman, so they don't quite understand what they're working with, but I can like translate it for them. So then consulting, or there's like so many companies that have like, you could do, you know, sales for them, or go and like be implementation consultants and help people start their way in using a certain program. And so I don't think there's just one thing that you can do if you're interested in any kind of data or even math. Like I didn't even realize, I just knew I was good at Excel, and that's literally how I started. Like I was a secretary when I got out of college, and I was like, I don't know, I left the mission field and was like, what am I gonna do? I became a secretary, and they saw that I like had strength in working in Excel and like creating reports for people and like bringing correlations in data, and that was just something that was natural for me. And so I found that path, and like now I'm moving in different ways. And so I don't think it's one specific way. Every company, every organization needs data. Like that's where the world is going. And so whatever you're passionate about, like you can find that company and bring data in that way, because everybody's gonna need it. That's like, you can't do anything without seeing what you've been doing and where you can go.
Thanks.
I don't know if that was specific enough.
No,
but,
that's great.
okay.
It's a bit of an odd question given our context here, but does it spur any thoughts for you?
Yeah, pretty similar. Graduated PE in '97. Never taught a day in my life. Was told I was not great with kids. They asked if I would consider coaching instead of teaching, because I ran track here under Franzen. So, yeah, you get out, you find out what you're good at. Kind of stumbled into the Excel thing myself, trying to answer questions that they couldn't provide answers for me to, so I decided to get my own answers. They saw that. Ended up going to school for my MBA and my MIS, and did doctoral work for international business, BBA work. All through that time, realizing that numbers are your friend. They don't have to scare you, and they can actually help you. At the law firm I'm at right now, before I went there, it's lawyers and social workers. They deal with adoption all the time. They were guessing a lot of times. They were spending a lot of money to see where the leads were coming from a lot of times. They weren't really looking at the back end. So if you can find value in providing information, either through making a system of your own or learning a system and implementing it, that's where you can add value to whatever profession you're in.
And I'll just comment, like, I'm a clinical psychologist, so the fact that I do data analysis is kind of weird, but I ended up getting some of those jobs because, well, I like to say, like, I am the son of an engineer and a scientist, and I think there was some genetic predisposition. I tried to go against it, but it just sort of kept sucking me back into thinking about data and being able to sort of engineer an understanding of people, I guess you would say. And so I like that because there's I like to say this, there's immense amounts of data in the world. There's very few people who know how to make sense of it. And so there's a huge need, and you don't have to necessarily be super advanced. It's actually skill sets that you can grow into, as you can see. People without data degrees, all three of us, are here because we were able to grow into these professions. So I think that's kind of exciting. So I'll ask a few more questions, and then if you would, if you have some, I've got more beyond that. But let me ask a third one. What drew you to your discipline? So can you share a little bit about how you came from PE? I mean, you've shared a little bit, and how you came from music. What brought you to the field that you're in? How did that, maybe kind of sharing the journey and the story behind it?
Yeah, so like I said, I was on the mission field after college, and when I came back, I just needed a job. I needed to make some money. And so I started as an administrative assistant, and they realized that I had a knack for numbers, and I thought, like, I could help. I can do this. Like, give me some work. And so I started working at my undergrad, where I got my undergrad from, and I just progressively just kind of moved into it. I saw that I found it fun. Like, it was cool to see how, like, I could take this big set of all this information and find some kind of, like, correlation between certain things and be able to say, like, this is our main demographic of people who apply to this university. So I work in higher ed. That's where my whole my whole career has been in. It has been in higher ed. And so I did admissions and registrar stuff, and now I'm in advancement. And so my whole career has been looking at student data, donor data, and saying, like, why do people come here? Like, what do the people look like that come here? Like, what do they, their bio demo, like where are they from? What do their parents do? Like, what are these things? And like, then where in the world should we spend our money to, like, market to those people? Like, if that's the people that are drawn here, let's, like, find that. Or, hey, we want to change, like, what our base population of students looks like. Like, what are we missing here? Are we missing some diversity? Like, well, like, let's spend money, like, here. We're not doing anything here. Like, let's move our way that way. And so I think it was just interesting. Like, I just like the idea of finding things that nobody had seen before. And so that is how I started. And now what I do is I create pretty pictures a lot of the time, so that people can understand that data. So it wasn't just helpful that I could see it. It needed to be helpful that people who don't like data, who don't like looking at this massive Excel sheet, like, they don't want to just scroll through thousands and thousands of rows. They just want to see, like, what it means. And so to be able to produce interesting reports and graphics so that it's dynamic and they can see right away what's important. So I have to make the decision of, like, what is important in this data, and, like, what is the most things that are standing out to me that I think that they should know. And so that's where, like, I live most of the time now. I do a lot of our board reports here for our board of trustees and for the president's office and things like that, to say, where is our university at and where should we be moving towards. And it's a lot of, it's true. Like, if you're here and you think, like, numbers are great, like, a lot of people don't think numbers are great. Like, they think they're awful to look at. So to be like, oh, here's this, even just this table full of numbers is hard for people to understand. So, like, what if I made that into, like, a bar chart or, like, a pie shape that has, like, multiple things, and I can, like, give some insight into each of those sections. It's fun for me to help others understand, like, what I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
you mentioned that one component of your job is enabling the university mission to pursue diversity.
Yep.
Can you
So not so much here, so I work in donors here, but not so much here. So at my previous job, one of the things was there was not a lot of diversity. And they were like, why is this happening? Like, why aren't we having a diverse student group? And so I took all the student data, I took the applicant data, and I said, like, let me look at this. And I said, well, you guys aren't marketing to these people. Like, you're literally going to the same churches every year. You're going to the same education fairs every year, and you're not, like, going to different places. So your actions are the same. You're gonna get the same results. So how about you start going to, like, so then I was in admission, so I was like, here are all these fairs that we don't go to every year. And this is in a more diverse area in different states that we don't hit. So why don't we try that? And so I was able to see, like, why, our results are what's happening, like what. And so being able to look at, 10 years of data and say, like, well, this is what's happening. Like, we were able to then, like, boost the diversity, because then now we were getting the applicants that we were looking for. Before we were going anywhere, they didn't know who we were because we weren't out there. We weren't marketing to the right places.
So data actually enabled social justice and
Yep.
diversity.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yep.
you want to share a little bit about,
I actually worked here from
Okay.
2000 to 2005 in the business office. If any of you have a lot of, like, maybe parents or older brothers, I probably was trying to collect money from them. I worked in the business office in the collections department. And what enabled me to be able to improve the department was use of big data tables and spreadsheets. I learned a lot of my skills. Does Steve Jenny still work here?
I think so.
I believe so.
Mhm.
He actually kind of introduced me to the next level of Excel, which was interesting, because I didn't realize you could do so much with it. Pivot tables, for one, are extremely powerful. So whatever data you're looking at, you can always make it into a more simplified model to appeal to more people. I'm comfortable with tables. A lot of people aren't. A lot of the attorneys and social workers at my work, they freeze up. It's kind of funny to watch. I do it sometimes on purpose, just if I'm bored. I just give them paperwork and they'll look at me like, what's this? And then I'll turn the page and they're like, okay, thank you. But, which leads to the next point. They trust you a lot. You know, you could be lying to them. If you get something wrong, they won't know, in particular if you missed a table, or if you missed a column, or if you missed a data point. So you gotta be really careful with what you're doing, which is kind of what draws people who are like highly conscientious, really careful, kind of OCD a little bit, just to make sure you go over things 2-3 times to make sure it's right, because there's a lot riding on your data sometimes. That's my own experience.
How do you see what you do as part of your calling?
If I do my job really well, we help birth mothers place for adoptions that go to abortion. So that's with me every day. If I check out or if I don't do a good job, I know I probably miss some people. My wife actually works for the same law firm I do. She's the weekend and evening birth mother call intake person. So she's on her game to talk to the birth mothers and really find out what they need. Obviously, you're not going to win every single one, but in looking at the back-end numbers for the calls that we get, where they come from, what time, you can kind of see patterns of where you're advertising, what that's converting to as far as leads, is what we call them for both sides, and say, okay, well, we need to look more in this area. We need to send more resources in this area. We're a law firm, but we're not gigantic, so we have limitations. So we have to be really careful where we put the money.
Yeah.
And it helps us make smarter decisions.
That's great. You both mentioned skills at Excel. So some of you have worked with Excel. Was it, okay, so you were good at it, but was it an immediate good, or did it take some work?
Took work.
YouTube is awesome.
Yeah, Google is like my best friend
Yes.
still to this
Yeah.
day. I mean, today I Googled like, how do I add a 0 where there is null data in the set? Like, I learn every day. I wish that I had more time to like actually spend in professional development. Because like, I mean, neither of us went to school. Like, I am kind of jealous of you guys that are in this like MS program. Like, that sounds fantastic. I feel like it would amp up my job, like how like I could perform in my job, because everything I've learned is just self-taught. And so I taught myself SQL. I taught myself how to use like different visualization tools, different databases, and things like that. And none of it was like, I mean, I liked numbers. I could catch on easy in that sense, but it wasn't just like, I woke up knowing Excel. No.
You didn't come into the world knowing Excel?
No, it's like, how can I see how many people are in each state in my Excel file? I'm like, oh, there's this thing called pivot tables. Oh, okay, like what is that? And then like reading about them, wow, like that's so amazing. And like going through like a lot of Google.
Apparently YouTube too.
Yeah, YouTube tutorials. Learning databases is not a bad idea. SQL's good. It's a relational database.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a relational database that operates. If you ever see a form on a website or a form on in a computer system, they all feed into a backend database, and SQL is a way to look at that database. And if you want to see how many Native American birth mothers were in Indiana in 2004 to 2008, you can pull your database, write the query, which is what they call it when you pull information from the database, execute, and then organize it.
Now, what you just said may sound kind of impossible to some students here. So you're a PE major, and now you're talking about programming. How do you get there?
Okay, like I said, I worked here from 2000 to 2005. So I did 3 years in business. I rented cars for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and a turn and burn organization, but learned a lot of skills, learned what I didn't want to do with the rest of my life. Came here 2000, 2005, met Steve, learned Excel, got good at it. Then went into, I was director of finance next for a couple of for-profit and universities, colleges. Got my master's in business, then I got my master's in information systems, which kind of got more skills related to what I like to do. But like you said, it's all learning all the time. If you're curious and you keep feeding yourself, you're gonna do well.
Yeah.
Most people aren't, which
Yeah.
I was really surprised that most people weren't more curious about why is that not working. They were just like, it's not working. Okay, but we're spending like $150,000 on it. Should we ask why it's not working? I'm just curious. That's like 3 full-time employee positions.